What can you tell us now about the Americans that Hamas still has control of?
Well, we know that there are several Americans that we believe are being held hostage. They're still unaccounted for, but our working assumption is that they're likely in this hostage pool, and we're doing everything we can to try to get more information about them. I'd be remiss, though, Annmarie, if I told you we had perfect visibility and transparency into where they are, how they are, and what our chances are of getting them out, except to say we're working on that literally by the hour, and we hope that a resumption, restoration of this pause can happen soon so that we can continue to work to get more hostages out.
We have heard again, Admiral, and thanks again for the time this evening, from Secretary Blinken, who says Israel has agreed to a, quote, clear plan, unquote, to limit civilian casualties. I spoke just yesterday with the former Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, about the way forward here and the essentially ground rules that Israel will follow in its bombing tactics in this next round. Here's what he said, and I'd love to have you respond.
They will do it on a less massive basis, a much more discreet, targeted basis, because they've seen the world reaction. We have an interest in helping the Israelis defend themselves and take on Hamas. We also have an interest in making sure that the Israelis don't pursue their mission in a way that jeopardizes our interests in the region. That is why Secretary Blinken, that is why President Biden is urging some restraint on the part of Netanyahu.
Admiral, I wonder if you agree with Secretary Cohen and if you know any details about this clear plan that the Secretary says is in place.
Well, the Secretary Blinken has talked about this just as recently as yesterday and even a little bit today, that we are going to continue to support Israel. We're going to continue to make sure they get the security assistance that they need, the ability to go after Hamas, which is still a legitimate target set for them and still poses a genocidal threat to the Israeli people at the same time. And we've been saying this since the early hours of the conflict. At the same time, we want to make sure that our Israeli counterparts do so in accordance with the law of war, and that they do everything they can to minimize civilian casualties, as well as minimizing damage to civilian infrastructure like hospitals. And in the conversations, again, I don't want to get into the diplomacy too much, but in the conversations that we've been having with them, including at the secretary's level, they have acknowledged that they agree with that approach, that they agree that they need to be careful and be mindful of the civilians, particularly in the south of Gaza. Now, hundreds of thousands of more civilians are now in the south because they moved out of the north at the urging of the Israeli Defense Forces. So they have an added burden here of additional people that they've got to be mindful of. And even as recently as today, the Israelis, using leaflets and other information tools, were able to inform the people of Gaza of where the resumption of military operations was likely to occur so that they could stay out of harm's way. That's a good sign. That's a step in the right direction.
Well, already north of 15,000 civilians in the Gaza Strip, according to the agency there run by Hamas. But a lot of third parties say over the years it's been factual in terms of accounting of these numbers. But to your point, Israel told civilians to go to the south, and now they're planning on striking the south. Where do you expect these civilians to go?
We have made 2 points here. One, we've told the Israelis very consistently we don't support southern operations unless or until they have factored in all those additional civilians, actually all civilians, but noting that there are now hundreds of thousands more civilians. Number two, to your specific question, Annmarie, we have also urged them to think about how to do this in a way that keeps those civilians safe. Now, I don't want to get into whether there's safe zones called for or what that could look like, but we certainly want to see them pursue these operations in a way that properly accounts for that civilian population and to the maximum degree that it can inoculate them from these combat operations so that they're not in harm's way, that they're not caught in the crossfire between Israel and Hamas.
Admiral, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that once the fighting in Gaza begins to wind down, and maybe before that, Israel's intelligence services are preparing to go around the world to hunt down and kill Hamas leaders that could be in Lebanon, Turkey, Qatar, Russia, and so forth. Is that a more effective path to continue targeted strikes like that as opposed to waging war in a densely populated area of civilians? Or is that that type of activity, a concern that it might open a second or third front?
I can't speak to the veracity of those reports or what Israel's intentions might be in terms of specific targeted operations against the leaders of Hamas. I will say, however, that they have been focusing a lot on the leaders of Hamas in Gaza, and they have had some success going after some of the leadership of that network. We know from our own experience that it's very hard to kill an ideology, but you can definitely impact the terrorist network's ability to resource and train and prepare attacks and conduct attacks by going after the leadership, by basically decapitating them and making it harder for them to command and control their fighters. And that is exactly what Israel is trying to do. We certainly understand that tactic and support that tactic, which is why, again, we're providing additional security assistance to them. But I also want to say we have been very clear. We don't want to see this conflict widen or deepen or escalate beyond the fight between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. And that's why the president has devoted additional military resources to the region, 2 carrier strike groups, air and missile defense systems, as well as tactical aircraft. And we're going to be watching very, very closely to make sure that no other actor, be it Iran or another nation state or a terrorist group, tries to take advantage here and escalate and deepen this conflict.
Well, to Joe's point about going after the leadership of Hamas, would the U.S. support the extradition of the political leader who's in Doha?
I'm just not going to get into hypotheticals right now, Annmarie, about what that could look like. Again, I can't confirm those reports. All I can do is tell you that we believe with the Israelis that we can't go back to October 6th, where Hamas is in charge in Gaza. Whatever happens post-conflict, that can't be it. It has to be governance in Gaza that is meeting the aspirations of the Palestinian people, and hopefully through a revitalized Palestinian Authority. We can't understand how Israel should be expected to live with Hamas as their next door neighbor.